Rain washed over the city like it was trying to cleanse something it didn't understand. Cars hissed past puddles that reflected broken neon signs, and under one flickering streetlight, a woman stood beside a wooden easel. Her fingers trembled as she held a brush, guiding color across a worn canvas while three small children, triplets no older than 6, huddled near her feet. Their shoes were soaked, their laughter faint, but their hopes somehow survived the storm. Across the street, a black luxury car rolled to a stop. The window lowered, and a man in a tailored suit looked out. His eyes froze. It was her. The world seemed to blur for Michael as he stared through the drizzle. His ex-wife, Lily, painting on the sidewalk like a forgotten dream. The woman who once stood beside him in diamond-lit halls was now standing in the cold, selling sketches for coins. And those three little faces, those weren't just strangers. He could see it in their eyes, something hauntingly familiar. For the first time in years, the billionaire forgot the taste of control. He stepped out of the car. The rain greeted him like old guilt. Lily didn't notice him at first. She was too busy convincing a passerby to buy her painting for $20. Her voice carried that same softness he once adored, gentle, desperate, still polite even in pain. The man shook his head and walked away. One of the triplets tugged at her coat. "Mommy, are we gonna eat tonight?" the smallest one asked. Lily smiled, a trembling, fragile smile, and whispered, "Of course, baby. Mommy just needs to sell one more." Michael's throat tightened. The same voice that once promised him forever was now promising a child a meal. He wanted to speak, to call her name, but guilt rooted him in silence. "Before we dive deeper, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? It amazes me how far a single story can travel. Drop your city. Let's see how wide kindness still spreads." A gust of wind sent one of Lily's paintings tumbling into the street. The paper fluttered like a wounded bird until Michael caught it mid-air. He turned it over and froze again. It was a portrait of him, younger, happier, with Lily beside him, painted in soft pastels. Every brushstroke carried love and sorrow intertwined. Lily looked up just then, startled to see a stranger holding her art. Then her eyes widened. The brush slipped from her fingers. Michael. His name left her lips like a ghost escaping. He stepped forward, heart pounding. "Lily, I." But she shook her head, stepping back protectively in front of the children. "What are you doing here?" she whispered. "I could ask you the same," he said softly. "You're painting on the street." Her eyes glistened. Everyone has to survive somehow. The triplets stared up at him curiously, clutching each other's hands. One of them, Eli, spoke first. "Mommy, who's that man?" Lily's lips parted, but no words came. She looked down, biting back tears. "No one, sweetheart. Just someone from a long time ago." Michael's chest ached. Once, he had imagined her living in comfort, remarried maybe, happy. Not this, never this. "Lily, why didn't you call me? You could have." She cut him off. "Because you made it clear I was nothing after the divorce. You had your company, your money, your world. I just had them." She motioned toward the triplets. Her voice trembled. Michael's eyes flickered between them and her. "They're yours." She nodded. He swallowed hard. "Ours." The silence that followed was louder than thunder. Lily turned her face away, the rain hiding her tears. "You left before you ever knew." Michael's world tilted. Every decision, every empire he built, every sleepless night chasing success, none of it mattered now. He was a father, and he had missed it all. The triplets looked up, confused by the grown-up silence. One of them reached for Lily's hand. "Mommy, are you crying?" She smiled faintly, brushing the child's cheek. "No, sweetheart. Mommy's just tired." Michael wanted to drop to his knees, to beg forgiveness, but shame held him like chains. How could he face her after everything? Instead, he whispered, "Come with me. I can help." Lily met his gaze, and for a moment, the storm around them disappeared. Only pain remained, old, familiar, unhealed. "Help," she repeated. "You think money can fix everything." Her tone wasn't angry. It was broken. Michael hesitated. "Maybe not everything, but it's a start." She shook her head, turning back to her easel. The only thing money ever bought me was loneliness. He had no answer. As he stood there, watching her repaint a smudged canvas under the flicker of the streetlight, something in him began to shift, a quiet storm brewing in the heart of a man who thought he'd seen it all. But nothing could prepare him for what was about to come next. Lily's words hung in the damp air like smoke that refused to fade. Michael stood there, silent, the rain soaking through his coat. For years he had built walls of steel and glass around his heart, skyscrapers of pride that touched the clouds. But now, one look at her and those walls trembled. The triplets, Eli, Noah, and Grace, gathered closer to their mother as if she were their entire world. And in truth, she was. Lily's hand moved gently over their heads, her touch both protection and apology. Michael cleared his throat, his voice breaking slightly. "Let me at least buy the painting." Lily hesitated. "It's not for sale." "You sell your art for strangers," he said softly. "Why not me?" She looked him in the eye, and for a fleeting second, he saw that spark again, the woman who once dreamed beside him, before power and greed had stolen her smile. "Because you already bought enough of me," she said, turning away. Her words struck him harder than any deal gone wrong, harder than any loss he'd endured in business. He took a small step back, realizing that all the success in the world couldn't buy the one thing he'd thrown away so carelessly. The rain began to slow, and the city lights blinked to life. People passed by, umbrellas blooming like dark flowers, none of them aware that history was bleeding quietly on this corner. One of the children, Noah, the middle one, picked up a wet sheet of paper and tried to smile at him. "Mister, do you want me to draw your house? Mommy says I'm good with crayons." Michael knelt down, his heart tightening. "I'm sure you are." The boy grinned proudly. "We draw every night so Mommy doesn't cry." Lily's breath caught, and she quickly looked away, pretending to adjust the painting. Michael's throat burned. "Do you live nearby?" She shook her head. "A small shelter, when there's space. Sometimes a church basement." "It's fine." "Fine," he echoed. "You're out here with children in the rain. Lily, this isn't fine." Her jaw tightened. "Don't act like you care now. Where were you when I needed you most?" He wanted to answer, to confess that he'd been too busy chasing numbers, that every night he'd looked at the empty half of his bed and pretended it didn't hurt. But words failed him. "I didn't know," he whispered. "Because you never asked," she replied. There was nothing left to say, only the sound of raindrops filling the spaces between their broken hearts. Michael finally turned away, walking toward his car. But halfway there, he stopped. The reflection of the family shimmered in a puddle, for silhouettes against the light. A fragment of what could have been. He clenched his fists. For the first time in years, his money felt useless, his empire small. He drove off without another word, but something inside him had shifted, a voice whispering that he couldn't leave it like this. Not again. That night, the billionaire who could buy anything stared out of his penthouse window, haunted by faces he couldn't forget. The rain continued to fall, soft against the glass, as if the heavens themselves were scolding him for letting go of something priceless. He picked up his phone and stared at an old photo still buried in his gallery, Lily on their wedding day, smiling, eyes bright with belief in him. "What did I do?" he murmured. Down on the street, in a small corner near the closed art shop, Lily wrapped her children in an old blanket, humming softly to keep them calm. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it. All that mattered were the tiny hands clutching her sleeves. "Someday, Mommy will have a shop again," she whispered. "A big one, with lights and warm cocoa for everyone." Grace yawned. "Will the man from today come too?" Lily's lips trembled. "No, sweetheart. He's gone." But somewhere deep down, she knew this story wasn't over. If you were there in that moment, what would you have done? Be honest. Comment your answer below. And if words fail you, just hit like to prove that compassion still matters. Days passed, but the image wouldn't leave Michael's mind. During board meetings, all he saw were those small faces. During dinners, every bite tasted like guilt. Finally, one evening, he couldn't bear it anymore. He got in his car and drove, not toward his mansion, not to the club, but back to that same street corner. Only this time, it was empty. No easel, No laughter. No Lily. Panic gripped him. He asked around, showing the painting he'd taken that night, the one of them together. A shopkeeper pointed down the block. The lady with the kids? Think she went to the old community shelter. Couldn't pay rent. Michael's pulse quickened. He followed the directions until he reached a narrow building with peeling paint. Inside, the air smelled of soup and tired dreams. He scanned the room, and there she was, Lily, sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by children drawing on cardboard. He froze in the doorway, watching her laugh softly as she corrected Grace's sketch. It wasn't the same laughter he remembered. It was fragile, worn thin by life, but it was still beautiful. He took a deep breath, knowing that stepping forward now would change everything. And for the first time in years, he wanted change more than comfort. Michael's shoes echoed against the cracked linoleum floor as he slowly approached her. The laughter of the children faded into a hushed whisper when they noticed a stranger in the doorway. Lily looked up, startled, her hand instinctively shielding the triplets. For a moment, neither spake, just a faint hum of the flickering light above them, and a quiet shuffle of paper on the ground. "I didn't mean to startle you," Michael said softly, his voice carrying both hesitation and hope. "What are you doing here, Michael?" she asked, standing up, her eyes wary. He looked around the room, bare walls, a few old blankets, and dozens of paper sketches taped up like fragile dreams. "I came to see if you were okay." Lily crossed her arms. "We're fine." Her tone was steady, but her trembling fingers told another story. The children huddled together behind her legs, watching the man with the fancy shoes and the sad eyes. Michael glanced down at them. "Hi there," he said gently. "Remember me?" Eli tilted his head. "You're the man from the rain." Michael smiled faintly. "That's right. How are your drawings coming along?" The boy grinned proudly. "Mommy says mine looks like real clouds." Michael knelt to their level. "Then maybe one day you'll paint the sky itself." Lily sighed, trying to hold on to the distance between them. "You shouldn't be here. These kids don't need promises. They need food, warmth, things money can't buy." Michael looked up at her. "Money can't fix everything, but maybe it can help." She hesitated. Help usually comes with a price. He shook his head. "Not this time. Please, let me do something right." For the first time, Lily didn't argue. Maybe exhaustion had softened her edges, or maybe part of her still wanted to believe that people could change. He reached into his coat and handed her an envelope. She frowned but took it cautiously. Inside was a check, a significant one, enough to change their situation completely. "Michael, no," she whispered. "I can't take this." "You're not taking it for yourself," he said quietly. "You're taking it for them." Her eyes shimmered with confusion and pride battling inside her. "Why now?" "Because I finally saw what I should have seen years ago," he admitted. "What I lost, who I became." The silence stretched again, heavy but not hostile. The children returned to their drawings, oblivious to the adult storm around them. Michael's phone buzzed in his pocket, his assistant calling about a board decision worth millions. But he didn't move. For once, the world outside could wait. Lily traced the edge of the check, her voice trembling. "Do you ever think about what might have been?" He nodded slowly. "Every day." Her expression softened just enough for him to see the woman he once knew, the dreamer who painted sunsets while he planned futures. "I don't need your money, Michael," she said. "I need you to remember that love wasn't the mistake." He exhaled, the truth sinking in like an old wound reopening. "Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would?" "Right, yes, and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think." That night, Michael couldn't sleep. The image of those little hands clutching broken crayons haunted him. So he called a friend from the city's art foundation and arranged something quietly, a charity showcase, under Lily's name, featuring street artists with untold stories. The next morning, he returned to the shelter. Lily was surprised to see him again, holding a small box of art supplies and warm clothes. "I told you we're fine," she said, but this time her tone lacked bite. "I know," he replied, "but sometimes even fine deserves better." She tried to hide her smile. "You never quit, do you?" "Not when it matters." He set the supplies on the table, his hands lingering on a small canvas. "You're still incredible, Lily. You always were." For the first time, her eyes softened with something close to forgiveness. She didn't say it, but in that silence, he felt it, the tiniest crack in the wall between them. Outside, the city stirred with morning life. But inside that dim shelter, something fragile and new began to take shape, a quiet possibility neither of them dared name yet. And as the triplets played near the corner, drawing with their new paints, Lily whispered to herself, "Maybe storms do wash things clean, if you let them." A few days later, the shelter buzzed with gentle excitement. Word had spread that a local gallery was hosting an exhibition for struggling street artists, an event sponsored anonymously. Lily didn't know that Michael was behind it. She thought it was fate, a tiny miracle carved out of the city's endless noise. She stood in front of the mirror that afternoon, brushing her hair for the first time in weeks. Her dress was simple but clean, the one she had kept folded at the bottom of a bag, just in case life got kind again. The triplets twirled around her, excited to see the big art house Mommy had been invited to. Michael waited outside, leaning against his car. When she stepped out, he froze. She wasn't the woman from the street that night. She was the Lily he remembered, the one who could light up any room without saying a word. "You look?" He started, but she raised her hand. "Don't say it. I'm nervous enough already." He smiled softly. "You'll be fine." The drive to the gallery was quiet, filled with things they didn't yet know how to say. The city outside rolled past, streets of glass and steel that Michael once thought he owned, but now they just felt hollow. When they arrived, the triplets ran ahead, their laughter echoing through the marble hallway. Inside, dozens of paintings were displayed, vibrant, raw, real. Each one told a story of struggle and hope, color bleeding into emotion. Lily's pieces hung near the center, soft portraits of love and loneliness. Her name shone beneath them, Lily Hartman, Streetlight Collection. Her hands trembled as she saw it. "Who did this?" she whispered. Michael just smiled faintly. "Someone who should have done it a long time ago." Tears gathered in her eyes, but she blinked them away before anyone could see. "Thank you," she said softly. "Not for the gallery, but for remembering me." For a while, she mingled among guests, answering questions, watching people admire her art. Every now and then, she'd glance at Michael. He didn't hover. He didn't boast. He just stayed quietly at the edge of the crowd, proud but humbled. When the triplets tugged at his sleeve, showing him a painting of their family, his heart nearly broke. They had drawn themselves, their mother, and a man standing beside them, smiling, hand in hand. "Who's that?" he asked, his voice shaking. Eli said matter-of-factly, "That's you. Mommy said you used to make her happy." Michael felt something inside him collapse and rebuild at the same time. He turned away, eyes burning. Lily noticed and approached quietly. "They see things simply," she said. "Maybe that's their gift." He nodded. "I wish I could see like that again." "Now it's your turn. Share one small good thing you did recently. Write it below so others remember that humanity still lives. Your story might light someone's path tonight." As the evening went on, reporters arrived, flashing cameras and asking questions. Lily handled it gracefully, though her voice quivered whenever someone praised her resilience. Michael watched from a distance, not wanting to steal her moment. But then, an older woman in a pearl necklace approached the display and murmured, "Isn't she the ex-wife of Michael Hale? The billionaire?" The room stirred. Whispers fluttered like startled birds. Lily froze, her face pale. Michael stepped forward before she could speak. "Yes," he said firmly, his voice echoing through the hall. "And she's the most talented woman I've ever known." The crowd went silent. Cameras turned toward him, flashes popping like lightning. He continued, his tone steady but raw. "I lost everything that mattered when I let her go. This exhibit isn't charity. It's an apology written in color." Lily's eyes filled, but she didn't move. The guests looked between them, unsure whether they were witnessing confession or reconciliation. He walked toward her slowly. "You don't have to forgive me. I just needed the world to see what I was blind to." For a long moment, Lily said nothing. Then, quietly, she whispered, "Maybe forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about needing peace." Michael smiled faintly. Then I hope you find yours. She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, her expression held neither anger nor pity, only quiet understanding. The applause that filled the room wasn't for him. It was for her. But somehow, that felt right. The gallery lights dimmed as the night came to a close. Guests began to leave, their chatter fading into soft echoes. Lily stood by the entrance, holding a bouquet someone had handed her, its petals trembling under the faint hum of air conditioning. The triplets were asleep on a bench nearby, their tiny hands wrapped around one another's fingers as if they were guarding a shared dream. Michael approached slowly, careful not to wake them. His eyes were gentler now, no longer the calculating gaze of a man used to control, but the gaze of someone rediscovering what it meant to care. "You did beautifully tonight," he said softly. Lily smiled faintly, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "I almost didn't come. I thought maybe I didn't belong in places like this anymore." "You belong everywhere light exists," he said without hesitation. She chuckled lightly, the sound half disbelief, half warmth. "You still know how to say the right thing. Only when it's true." There was silence for a moment, an easy silence this time. Not the kind built on regret, but on something fragile and growing. "I was thinking," Michael said carefully, "maybe I could help set up something permanent for you. A small art studio, something under your name. You wouldn't have to struggle again." She studied him for a long time before replying. "You're doing all this out of guilt, aren't you?" He sighed. "Maybe at first, but now, I think I'm doing it because I finally remember what love looks like when it's unselfish." Her eyes softened. "Michael," he shook his head, "you don't owe me anything. Not forgiveness, not even friendship. I just want you and the kids to have what I couldn't give before, peace." Her lips parted to speak, but no words came. She looked down at her children, asleep and safe for the first time in months, and felt something melt inside her. "Maybe peace doesn't have to be found alone," she whispered. He smiled, small, real, almost boyish. "Maybe not." For a moment, the years between them faded. They weren't the billionaire and the street artist anymore. They were just two souls who had once believed in forever, standing in the quiet after storm. If that moment hit you hard, leave a red heart hash. Sometimes one little symbol says what our hearts can't. Later that night, Michael offered to drive them home, or at least back to the shelter, but Lily hesitated. "You've done enough. We'll be fine." He frowned slightly. "You said that word again." She tilted her head. "Which one?" "Fine." He smiled sadly. "You've used it every time I asked how you were. But fine isn't living, Lily, it's surviving." Her throat tightened. "Survival's all I knew after you left." "I know," he said quietly, "and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make sure you don't have to survive alone anymore." Lily looked at him for a long moment before nodding. "All right, but if you're serious, we do it my way. No pity, no control. Just help." "Deal," he said instantly. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the city lights. Michael opened the car door, and for once, Lily didn't argue. The triplets were carried gently into the back seat, their sleepy murmurs filling the silence. As they drove, the city unfurled around them, billboards, bridges, the hum of midnight life. For the first time in years, Michael wasn't thinking about stock prices or board meetings. He was thinking about crayons, laughter, and second chances. He parked outside the shelter, and before she could leave, he said, "I'm not asking you to come back. I just want to be around. For them. For you." Lily met his gaze, her voice soft. "Maybe being around is where everything starts." He nodded slowly, knowing she was right. The hardest part wasn't finding love, it was earning it again. And somewhere in the backseat, Eli stirred and whispered sleepily, "Mommy, did the Sky Man bring us home?" Lily smiled through her tears. "Yes, baby, maybe he did." Michael closed his eyes for a second, feeling something inside him settle, the first quiet peace he'd known in years. The days that followed felt strangely gentle, like life had slowed down just enough for everyone to breathe again. Lily began teaching art classes at a local youth center, using the leftover supplies Michael had bought. Children from a neighborhood came every afternoon, their laughter and chatter echoing through the once-empty rooms. The triplets helped too, Grace mixing colors, Eli hanging finished drawings, Noah running to fetch brushes. Michael visited often, though never uninvited. He brought snacks for the kids, sometimes stayed behind after class to fix broken chairs or hang paintings. Each visit chipped away a little more of the awkwardness that once sat between them. One evening, as the sun melted into gold across the windows, Lily found him quietly sweeping the floor after everyone left. "You don't have to do that," she said, leaning against the doorway. He looked up, smiling faintly. "I know, but I miss cleaning up messes that actually meant something." She chuckled softly. "You used to hate mess." "I used to hate anything I couldn't control," he admitted. "Now, I think I'm learning that some things are supposed to be messy." For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt easier, lighter, like forgiveness had begun whispering its way through the cracks. Lily stepped closer. "You're changing, Michael." He set the broom aside. "No, I'm just remembering who I was before I forgot what love looked like." Her heart ached at the honesty in his voice. She wanted to say something kind, something healing, but the past still lingered, fragile as glass. He noticed her hesitation and added quietly, "I don't expect you to trust me again overnight. I know I broke that, but I'll wait, as long as it takes. Be honest, could you forgive after what they did? Type forgive if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply." Weeks turned into months, and the art center bloomed into something beautiful. Local media picked up Lily's story. From street to studio, the artist who painted hope back into her life. Donations poured in. Children who'd never touched a brush were now calling her Miss Lily with bright, paint-stained smiles. Michael kept his distance publicly. He wanted her success to be his alone. But privately, he supported every detail, quietly paying rent when the landlord raised it, buying supplies anonymously, even fixing the leaking roof one night with his own hands. Lily noticed. Of course, she did. And every quiet act of kindness made the space in her heart that held his name ache a little less. One Friday evening, as she locked up the studio, she found him sitting on the front steps, waiting. He looked tired, worn, not from work, but from reflection. "You're early," she teased. He shrugged. "Old habits. I used to arrive early to meetings just to prove I was in control. Now I show up early because I don't want to miss this." She sat beside him. "This?" He nodded toward the glowing window of the studio. Inside, the kids' paintings covered every wall. Dreams, homes, suns, hearts. "That! The kind of beauty I spent years ignoring." Lily smiled faintly. "It's not too late to see it now." He turned to her, his gaze steady. "Is it too late for us?" Her breath caught. "Michael, I'm not asking for an answer," he said quickly. "Just a chance. To prove that the man who left you isn't the same man sitting beside you now." Her eyes glistened, reflecting the amber glow of streetlights. "I don't know if I can love you the way I used to." "Then love me differently," he whispered. "Just don't shut the door." Lily stared at him for a long moment, the weight of years softening into a single truth. People change, but sometimes love changes with them. She didn't speak, but her silence wasn't rejection. It was permission, a small, trembling beginning. And for Michael, that was everything. The morning sunlight filtered through gauzy curtains, painting soft lines across the small apartment. The smell of coffee mingled with the laughter of children. Grace was giggling as Noah tried to balance toast on his head, and Eli was sketching at the kitchen table. For once, the world felt ordinary, and that was its own kind of miracle. Michael leaned against the doorframe, watching them with quiet awe. He had spent years chasing numbers, yet in that simple, messy room, he finally understood wealth. It wasn't in glass towers or stock reports. It was in the warmth of being needed. Lily glanced up from the stove. "You're smiling," she said, her voice light. He chuckled softly. "I didn't know I could end them all." She walked over and handed him a mug of coffee. Their fingers brushed, a touch that carried both history and hope. "Guess life had to teach you differently." He nodded. "It did. You did." Outside, snow still blanketed the world in quiet grace. The triplets bundled up to play, their laughter echoing down the street. Lily watched them from the window, then turned to Michael. They've been asking if you'll be around for their school play next week. I wouldn't miss it for anything, he said without hesitation. She smiled softly. You used to miss everything. He exhaled. I know, but this time, I'm staying. For the first time, she believed him. They spent the day helping the children build a snowman on the sidewalk, its crooked grin standing proudly like a symbol of imperfection embraced. Neighbors stopped to wave, unaware that the billionaire who once owned half the city was now finding joy in a pile of snow and paint-stained mittens. As evening fell, Lily lit a candle on the windowsill, a habit she'd never given up. For what's lost, she said quietly. Michael added, and for what's found again. She looked at him then, truly looked, and this time she saw not the man who left, but the man who returned. Different, human, redeemed. If the story moved you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for the soul who carried this pain and still stayed kind. One click can be your way of saying, I felt you. When the candle burned low, Lily whispered a thought that had been living in her heart for months. You know, the hardest part of losing someone isn't the silence. It's forgetting what their voice sounded like when they loved you. Michael reached for her hand gently. Then let's make new memories, louder ones. Her tears fell freely now, not from pain but release. You think we'll make it. He smiled softly. We already did. The triplets came running in, cheeks flushed from the cold, shouting for them to come see the snowman before it melted. Lily laughed, and Michael joined her. They stood together at the window, watching the 5 small handprints on the snowman's belly, 3 tiny ones, 2 larger ones, and somehow it felt like a promise. Outside, the city glowed under winter's hush. Inside, the warmth of forgiveness filled the room. Moral: sometimes life takes everything from you, not to punish you, but to show you what truly matters when there's nothing left to lose. Love, once lost, can find its way back, not through grand gestures, but through quiet acts of kindness, patience, and courage to stay. Because in the end, the richest hearts are the ones that learn how to give again.